The morning sun shone brightly over the small village of Akan, where Amara lived with her family. This village was nestled at the foot of towering ancient mountains, surrounded by dense forests and untold mysteries. Amara was known for her inquisitive nature, always exploring and listening to the stories of the old ones. Her favorite tales were those of the lost kingdom of Ashoka, a civilization said to be far beyond the knowledge of her ancestors. The elders spoke of a mighty kingdom, whose riches and wisdom were unmatched, but it had mysteriously disappeared centuries ago, leaving behind only faint whispers of its existence. One day, while going through her grandmother's old chest, Amara found a peculiar map hidden between some dusty old scrolls. The parchment was faded and fragile, but the markings were surprisingly clear. It was a map that promised to lead to the legendary Ashoka, a kingdom thought to be a mere myth. With her heart pounding, Amara held the map up to the sunlight. Her excitement surged as she realized that the map was pointing toward a place she knew. It was the forest, the very one she'd always avoided for fear of its strange legends. Could this be real? She whispered to herself. The map was old, the ink faded, but the symbols and lines on it were unmistakable. She looked at the note at the bottom of the map. Only those with pure hearts may reach the kingdom. Beware of those who seek power. The words were a warning, but they also spurred Amara's curiosity even further. She had to find out if Ashoka was real. Amara couldn't keep this discovery to herself. She showed the map to her best friend, Kofi, a clever boy who, despite his skepticism, shared her love for adventure. Kofi had often laughed at the idea of lost kingdoms and magical treasures, but something about this map intrigued him. "Are we really going to follow this?" Kofi asked, his brow furrowed. "What if it's just a story someone made up?" Amara smiled confidently. "We'll never know unless we try." The two friends packed their belongings, water, food, and a few small tools, and set out toward the forest. It was a beautiful day, but Amara couldn't shake the feeling that something larger than them was at play. The forest ahead loomed large, dark, and mysterious. The air grew thick with an eerie silence. As they entered the dense undergrowth, Amara could almost hear the forest whispering, its ancient trees murmuring secrets. She had heard tales of the Whispering Forest, a place said to deceive travelers, leading them astray with illusory sounds and visions. "This is the place," Amara said, her voice barely above a whisper. Kofi looked around, uneasy. "It feels wrong, Amara. I don't know about this." They followed the map's directions, trying to stay on the path marked out for them. But with each step, the forest seemed to become more confusing. The trees shifted, their roots snaking across the path, making it nearly impossible to find their way. Then, just when the forest began to feel completely disorienting, Amara spotted something in the distance, a flicker of light. It was faint, like a will-o'-the-wisp, beckoning them forward. Without a second thought, Amara ran toward the light, with Kofi reluctantly following behind. As they drew closer, the light intensified until they stood in front of an old stone archway, hidden beneath thick vines. This wasn't on the map," Kofi murmured, taking a step back. The archway looked ancient, worn by time. Strange symbols were etched into its surface, and as they approached, a voice suddenly echoed from within the arch. "Only those with courage may pass. Answer this question, traveler. What is the greatest strength of a kingdom?" Amara's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the weight of the question hanging in the air. Without hesitation, she stepped forward and answered confidently, "The strength of a kingdom lies not in its riches, but in the hearts of its people." There was a long pause. The forest fell silent, as if waiting for something. And then, slowly, the archway began to glow. and the vines moved aside, revealing a hidden path. The path they followed led them to a wide, fast-flowing river. The water shimmered in the sunlight, but it was unlike any river Amara had ever seen. The current moved backward, against the natural flow of the world. "This river shouldn't be flowing like this," Kofi said, his voice tense. "It's unnatural." Amara squatted down at the river's edge, running her fingers through the cool water. "It's beautiful, though," she said softly. "It feels like it's from another time." The map in Amara's hands revealed a bridge, but there was no sign of it in sight. According to the map, they had to summon the bridge themselves. Amara stared at the river's surface, and suddenly she saw the ripples shimmer in the sunlight. She took a deep breath and spoke aloud. "Please, help us cross." To her amazement, the river began to part slowly, revealing a stone bridge, glowing with an ethereal light. The air seemed to hum with energy. Kofi watched in awe. Did you do that?" Amara looked at him, surprised at her own actions. "I don't know, but we need to cross. The kingdom is waiting." They walked across the bridge cautiously, and as they did, a voice boomed from the river below. "Only those who speak truth may pass. What is the greatest treasure of all?" Amara felt the weight of the question pressing on her. Kofi was silent for a moment, and then Amara spoke. "Knowledge. It is the treasure that no one can take from you. The more you learn, the richer you become." The river rumbled in approval, and the bridge seemed to glow even brighter, guiding them forward. Beyond the river, they found themselves standing before a massive structure, the Forgotten Temple. Its walls were crumbling, covered in moss, but the carvings on the stone were still clear, depicting the history of Ashoka and its rise to power. Inside, the air was thick with dust. The floor was cracked, and the pillars were shattered, but the place still held an aura of grandeur. Amara ran her fingers over the carvings, and Kofi stayed close, glancing nervously at the shadows that seemed to move on their own. "Do you think this is it?" Kofi asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Amara nodded, but something didn't feel right. The deeper they went into the temple, the colder the air became. The walls seemed to close in, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Suddenly, they heard a voice, a deep, gravelly whisper echoing through the walls. "The truth lies within, but beware, the last test awaits. Only one who seeks for good will pass." Amara's heart raced. She knew that the hardest part of their journey was yet to come. But there was no turning back now. They entered the heart of the temple, where an ancient throne stood, surrounded by more carvings. At the throne, they saw an ethereal figure, a ghost draped in regal robes. The figure was no ordinary ghost. It radiated power, but also sorrow. "You dare disturb the peace of Ashoka," the ghost hissed, its voice like the sound of crumbling stone. Amara stepped forward bravely. "We do not seek to disturb, but to restore what was lost. We seek the truth about Ashoka's fall." The ghost's eyes burned with fury. "You are too late. The kingdom has been lost forever. It was betrayed by the very people it trusted." The figure lifted its hands, and the room seemed to shudder. "But there is one who can bring the kingdom back. It is not the crown that holds the power, but the courage of the true heir." Amara was stunned. The truth about Ashoka's fall wasn't a simple story. It was tied to betrayal and lost honor. The kingdom had not fallen because of invaders or conquest, but because of treachery from within. And then, with a flash of light, the ghost vanished, leaving behind a piece of jewelry, a pendant, resting on the throne. Amara took the pendant in her hands. As she touched it, the room began to transform. The ancient walls, once cracked and crumbling, started to rebuild themselves. The temple glowed with light, and the once-lost kingdom of Ashoka began to return.